Star Wars 7x7 episode 3119. A fun little tradition of sorts has been renewed with Monday Night Football and the debut of a new Star Wars related trailer. This time it's for season 3 of The Mandalorian. We've got 7 very exciting takeaways from that trailer to share with you here. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So for our 7 takeaways, the first 3 have to do with the 3 major storylines that were hinted at for us in this official Mandalorian trailer. The first of them has to do with the Mandalorian's journey during season 3. It is very strongly hinted at with the initial monologue that we get from the Mandalorian at the very beginning of the trailer. He starts off by saying our people are scattered like stars in the galaxy, and then asks existential questions. Who are we and what do we stand for? As we see Mandalorians assembling and Mando himself coming out of a cave, prepared to, it looks like, deliver some kind of speech to assembled Mandalorians. And then he goes on to say that learning how to fight isn't the only important thing about being a Mandalorian, it's also learning how to navigate the galaxy. And so what this is setting us up for is not just the Mandalorian managing to make up for his past transgressions, but actually stepping into a leadership role within Mandalorian culture, which means that he and Bo-Katan are going to go up against each other in a major way. And that leads me to my second takeaway, which is that we see Mandalorians on the attack on Nevarro, it looks like. And I posted a couple of screenshots at our Twitter account for the show, that's SW7X7 Podcast, where you can see elements of the center square in the main city in Nevarro where Mando and Greef meet and shake hands in a very Commando-like way. And yeah, it's definitely taking place there. So it's as if Bo-Katan has set some Mandalorian forces to capture and or kill the Mandalorian on Nevarro when he is least expecting it. So for our next takeaway, this is the third takeaway, so I'm actually pairing stuff. So that whole 1, 2, 3 thing I said at the beginning, doing it a little differently. Anyway, our second storyline, this is our third takeaway from the trailer, is going to be pursuing Grogu's past and his training. And we see a shot that is definitely from the fall of the Republic and the rise of Order 66. We see Jedi in the Jedi Temple assembling in front of a door that is being burned unlocked. So we know that there's going to be a battle there. The only reason they would be showing this to us is to show us how Grogu escaped the events of the fall of the Republic. And as far as Grogu's development goes, well, that's the fourth takeaway, and it has to do with 2 particular scenes. One at the very end, which was a great little stinger scene where some crazy-looking alien drops down and Grogu just force throws him away. So clearly he's getting to be in a little more control of his powers. But the other scene that I thought was really remarkable was one where we see Mando with Grogu in the cockpit with him and R5-D4 in the back in the astromech port. They are flying through a rainstorm and we see what appear to be lightning flashes of some kind. What I'm wondering is if there's any reason for Mando to be taking Grogu to Dagobah, because that's the only situation where we've seen that kind of, rain crazy thing. Or the other alternative would be Kamino, and that raises some very interesting questions like, is it possible that Grogu himself is a strand cast and that Yoda and or Yaddle had been used to help create Grogu? Now, we don't really have an idea of what's left of Dagobah post Return of the Jedi, though the Yoda comic series that is currently unfolding might give us an idea. We know that there was an orbital bombardment of Kamino, and particularly of Tipoca City, and you would imagine other cities on Kamino as well as a result of the events of Season 1 of The Bad Batch. So yeah, rainstorm flying situations. I really do think they're either digging into Grogu's past or into clues that could help develop him for the future. or both. The third major storyline they seem to want to pursue in season 3, and this will be our 5th takeaway from the trailer, has to do with the activities in the Imperial Remnant. We see Carson Teva returning, which is very fun and wonderful, talking about how something big is going on out there, presumably somewhere in the Outer Rim, and if it gets big enough for people to act, whoever he's talking to, then it's going to be too late, whatever that is. So it sounds very ominous, obviously. We don't know who Carson Teva is talking to, however, he is not in a flight suit, so it seems like he is in for some sort of official meeting proceeding, and of course, one wants to jump with excitement and say, is it possible he's talking to Mon Mothma, but the surroundings don't seem to be that opulent per se, and he's, low enough on the chain, like, he's just a, pilot with the New Republic Star Corps, so seems unlikely he'd be getting an audience with Mon Mothma, but that's the sort of situation where you might expect them to, drop something that would be very surprising and very pleasing to fans as far as who he might be sharing this information with. And the 6th takeaway seems to be related to that plot line of what's going on with the Imperial Remnant. We saw Dr. Pershing in the teaser trailer for The Mandalorian previously, walking through some sort of facility and not knowing what he was up to. Well, we see him in this official trailer on Coruscant being jetted around in a taxi. So what is he doing on Coruscant and why? This can't be good for any reason whatsoever, and you would imagine it has to do with whatever the Imperial Remnant is developing out in the Outer Rim. And the last takeaway has to do with the fact that, yes, while we get all of these storylines that develop over a number of episodes and create a bigger picture and a bigger palette for the Mandalorian to work with, we also have episodes where the Mandalorian still has to get to work and earn credits to be able to survive in the galaxy. There's a scene where we have a bar filled with droids and the Mandalorian is there. What I'm wondering is whether this is a droid Gatra situation. So the droid Gatra is a criminal organization that is run by droids. It has been mentioned in various Star Wars media up through the Book of Boba Fett, but that doesn't necessarily get us to the time frame of The Mandalorian. However, there is that scene in the beginning of Season 2 of The Mandalorian where he meets with that one-eyed alien Gor Koresh, who's voiced by John Leguizamo, and at one point he says, "I swear by the Gatra." Now, the Gatra could refer to a crime organization that isn't the droid Gatra, but yeah, it's kind of an interesting coincidence. So I think that it's possible it's the droid Gatra, and man, oh man, I mean, Mando does not like working with droids. So whatever's got him working with the droid Gatra, if that's what this really is got to be a pretty big deal. And so there you go. Those are the 7 takeaways that I've got for you from this Mandalorian official trailer that dropped on Monday Night Football. Pretty significant, all things considered. I mean, it goes pretty fast, and it feels like we've seen a lot of the stuff before, but man, it does hint at a wide canvas for this season. And I'd love to hear what you think about it. What did you get particularly excited about? Please drop me a line here on YouTube. If you're watching the video, then just drop it in the comments. And if you're catching it in an audio version, then wherever you like to chime in on social media or the blog post for this show's episode at sw7x7.com. And that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.